Eventually, ended up getting hurt in the line of duty as a cop, and the NYPD retired me out. I was still doing real estate, and my wife and I decided, hey, listen, where are we going from here?
The term comes to mind, a man's got to do what a man's got to do. You got to provide for your family, take care of your kid. You got to work.
When deals fall apart, or the bank account balance starts going low, it's like, man, this is stressful, right? But it goes back to zooming out to the big picture and understanding why we built what we built. It's having the mindset like, hey, does this have to be done at 10 o'clock on a Saturday night, or can it wait till Monday at 9 a.m.? The thing that I try to be intentional about is, as a real estate broker, your phone's in your hand 24/7. One of the things I try to focus on is if my kids are in the room, that my phone is down and I'm paying attention to them. So what I would say, coming from where we started, start scared, but start anyway. Do it. Don't sit on the sidelines and contemplate what could be. Just get out there, have a framework, and get out there and get after it. It's not going to be perfect, but I would say get out there and do it anyway.
Hello and welcome to my Business Story Podcast with your host, Johnny Perez. That's me. Hey, so today we'll be talking with Adam Bronko. He's a retired police officer turned real estate broker. With his business partners, he's the part owner of Remax Rise. With his partners, they manage two real estate offices in Connecticut, one in Naugatuck and the other in Cheshire. And he is currently building their third office in Watertown, Connecticut. Adam has profound insight in today's real estate market, so he also shares regularly in his talks under his other business venture called Closing In on Success to help real estate agents learn and grow together with building their professional network. Adam, thank you so much for being part of this podcast.
Thanks, Johnny. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
So, Adam, what is your business and what is it that you do in your business?
Yeah, so I'm one of the co-owners of Remax Rise. We're a real estate company here with 2 offices and 67 agents in Connecticut.
Awesome. And can you just take us back a little bit to, the beginning and what were you doing when you started your business?
Sure. So I'll take you back even further. And at the ripe old age of 21, I joined the NYPD, moved down to New York City from Connecticut. I was a New York City cop, and ended up, after a few years, getting into a specialized unit called the Highway Patrol. With that came steady overtime, and soon came up for the promotion to sergeant. And being in a specialized unit, you get booted back to patrol. You can't stay in the unit when you get promoted. So with that, I was losing that steady overtime that I had been accustomed to. My wife was home with our newborn son and our 1-year-old daughter, and I said, I've got to do something because we can't put her back to work, right? So I've got to do something to make up the loss of the overtime that I was making. And I said to myself, if I won the lottery and never had to work again, what would I do? And real estate came into my mind, and I said, I grew a passion for homes and architecture and construction when I was young. My father's a carpenter, had crews that framed houses for 25 years, and I would hop on the crew on my vacations and go to work framing houses. So I grew a passion for homes and the intricacies behind constructing a home. And I knew that real estate could give me the flexibility to work around my full-time job as a cop. So I went for it. I ended up searching real estate license on Groupon and found a $99 Groupon course where I did my real estate license online. And I said to myself, for $99, if I don't pass, it'll just be $99. And if I do pass, it'll be the best $99 that I've ever spent. So fast forward 10 years to today, it was well worth the $99 that I spent on the license.
Yeah.
So with that, I joined an independent company in Staten Island where we were living, and hooked up with another retired NYPD sergeant who kind of took me under his wing, was my original first mentor, and really showed me the ropes of real estate and how to be a good agent, work around and problem solve. And credit him to my success for sure. And eventually ended up getting hurt in the line of duty as a cop, and the NYPD retired me out. I was still doing real estate, and my wife and I decided, hey, listen, where are we going from here? We could stay where we are. We can move to another part of the country, or we can go back home to Connecticut where our family was. And ultimately, we decided to come back to Connecticut. So we moved back to Connecticut in June of 2018. I retired in February of 18. And by July, I had opened up my own independent brokerage against other people's advice. Didn't want to work for anybody. I wanted to make my own path. So I said, I'll be an independent brokerage. That's what I was familiar with in Staten Island. All the top brokerages were all independent brokerages. But what I quickly found out here in Connecticut is a brand goes a lot farther than an independent brand. With the ability to scale and scale more rapidly with a brand that everybody knows and trusts is crucial up here in Connecticut, because people knew who I was in Naugatuck, but as I went outside the town that I'm from, people didn't know who I was and didn't understand what Bronco Homes Real Estate was. So
Mhm.
started looking at different brands, and Remax came to mind because every deal I did with a Remax agent was just it was a better transaction. They were more professional, knowledgeable. The deal went smoother, and I said, whether I did a deal with a Remax agent in New York or Connecticut, it was a better deal. So there must be something behind the Remax brand. And we started looking at it, and said, yeah, this is a great brand. It gave us room to grow. It was entrepreneurial, focused, and let you build the business how you see it. And that's when I reached out to my current business partner, Mike Albert, and said, hey, we need to have some coffee. And slid the Remax folder across the table to him. He said, no way, we can't do Remax. It's not around here. And I said, exactly, that's the point. And the journey began from there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Great story. Um, so I'm just gonna have a separate thing going here, just on the back end for audio. Um, Cool. All right. Beautiful. All right. So, continue on. What was the spark, or something that made you take the leap into entrepreneur, rather to be an entrepreneur? So what kind of training, what kind of things did you do that sort of gave you the confidence that, like, yeah, I could do this. I could do this.
Yeah, so I've always been entrepreneurial minded. Even when I was younger, I started a landscaping company with a buddy, and
Mm,
we ended up um, landscaping, snow plowing. It actually turned into a big thing. So that was when I got bit by the entrepreneurial bug, so to speak.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I knew that when I retired, that was something I wanted to get back into. I've been it was a blessing in disguise. Although I got hurt. I
Mhm.
had a pension and health insurance, so I had that safety net. So that's kind of what really motivated me, is like, well, you got nothing holding you back now. You
Yeah.
got that safety net, and the world ahead of you. At the time I retired, I was 31,
Mhm.
so young, and I said, well, let's do this.
Mhm. Awesome. And then did you have a clear plan, or were you still sort of figuring things out, either in, you mentioned the contracting, or in, when you started your brokerage?
Yeah, no uh, thorough plan. We had an idea of what we wanted to do.
Yeah.
When Mike and I got together, the vetting process, what we didn't realize with Remax was about 6 months long.
Mhm.
And, we had to get the thumbs up from several different people in the organization before they actually allowed us to open up.
Mm.
Um, so it was that itself was a journey, going out to the annual conference in Las Vegas that they call R4, meeting with the certain, SVPs and VPs to get
Mhm.
the thumbs up, like these guys are good to go. Um, as far as plans, we knew that we wanted to open something great, something that a real estate brokerage that was different from all the rest that we saw here. I like to
Mhm.
joke sometimes. In some real estate offices here, you don't know if you're walking into a real estate office or a funeral home.
Wow.
We didn't want a real estate brokerage to look like that, right? So we
Yeah,
want
yeah, yeah.
wanted a fun, inviting, a positive and productive atmosphere, a place where agents can come in and feel good about getting work done and bringing clients in. So we knew that we wanted to do something to that effect, but we definitely needed guidance in opening up the brokerage, and
Yeah.
glad that we got that through the Remax network.
Mhm. Yeah, and then, as it pertains to the climb, early struggles and so on, what were some of the biggest challenges you faced early on?
I don't know if you ever heard, Johnny, there was this thing that swept the world called COVID.
Oh, yeah, I remember. It was
Yeah, so we actually signed our franchise agreement with Remax in March of 2020,
mm,
right as the world was shutting down.
wow.
Um, so everybody around us was telling us, "Hey, you're done.
Mhm,
World's collapsing. Real estate's going to collapse. You guys, back out now. It's never going to work." Um, but we had just paid our franchise fee and said we're going in feet first. It's too late now. We're not looking back. We're just full steam ahead going forward. Um, and it was challenging. It
mhm,
ended up being what eventually became one of the best markets that we've seen in recent history. But
yeah,
in March of 2020, that's not what people were saying.
yeah, yeah,
So, we had to build out an office in the middle of COVID, and had to shut it down a couple times because of COVID.
yeah,
But we worked through the obstacles, and my gym instructor in the academy always comes to the back of my mind when I hit an obstacle. His famous words were, "What are you gonna do? You got to do something."
yep,
So every time I come up against an obstacle, I can hear Detective Barrio in my mind saying, "What are you gonna do, Bronco? You got to do something."
yep.
And that's kind of how I tackle challenges as they come. What am I gonna do? I've got to do something, figure it out, and get through it.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of part of, I don't know, I don't wanna say manhood, but I'm gonna say manhood. As a man, we have that distinct sort of, being the I don't know, it's sort of hard because we're we're in a society now where it's like, uh, uh, you don't wanna be xenophobic or, all those other phobia things, but it's like the term comes to mind, a man's gotta do what a man's gotta do. You gotta provide for your family, take care of your kids, you gotta work. We're created, we're built to work, and we have it's scientifically proven that men have the muscle structure and the skeletal structure to handle more weight than the other the other breed of human. Um, and so it's something where we're innately capable, we're, created to work, and to take care of our families, and it's no coincidence, and so it's when people don't when they shy away from that, it's sort of puts a bad taste in my mouth, but you took
I,
care of
I,
business.
I- yeah, I mean, I was really fortunate. I learned the tough lessons very early on. That and taught by the NYPD.
Mm,
We had an admin lieutenant in the academy, and who very clearly told us, nobody's coming to help you. You're out there. You're the
mm,
professional. You solve the problem. Figure
mm,
it out. You know,
yeah,
um, and that's just all right. If he says that it can be done, then well, that's what we're gonna do.
yeah,
We'll
yeah.
figure it out.
Yeah, that was sort of I don't know if you know this about me, but I used to work for AT&T, Comcast, Vision as an installer, and there was many a days, starting out when I would, especially the first couple installs I did on my own, where, we went to school, we did all the training, wiring a house and everything like that. But then it's totally different when you're there on the job alone and the customer is right there over your shoulder. It's like, what are you doing? And there it's like when you're trying to figure out the problems, you go back to your training, but then you go back to, you know figuring it out. What works, what doesn't work. Sometimes the books don't explain everything, and you sort of have to figure out based on the scenario they have at hand. And then it's like, fortunately and unfortunately, I was still, I guess, under training, and I was able to call one of my supervisors, and he was able to help me out. He's like, "Oh, I've never seen this before." I'm like, "I feel better," and so he was able to help me rewire the whole thing and fix the issue. But that helped me to work under pressure. And that's one of the things that sort of carried with me into my own entrepreneurial business ventures. And it's so amazing what we're capable of doing. And it's like, what's the term? Your next breakthrough, your next success is at the other end of your biggest failure or your downfall, and the things that were meant to break you or only make you stronger kind of scenario. So, was there ever a moment that you wanted to quit? Probably not, yours, always have it, like, right there, right? What kept you going through that?
Yeah, I would say, that feeling happens a lot. Um,
Mhm,
but when deals fall apart or, the bank account balance starts going low, it's like, man, this is stressful, right?
mhm,
But it goes back to zooming out to the big picture and understanding why, we built what we built. Um, Obviously, um, trusting in God and understanding that it's His pathway that I'm on. And my family, building something, building a legacy that my kids can eventually come into. Um, and the purpose of helping all the agents around me. When I that doubt starts creeping in, I say to myself, hey, listen, I got a lot of people that are counting on me to perform, right? And if I quit, what happens to them, right?
yeah,
And that's really a motivator for me to, you know, I my type of leadership is servant leadership, so I'm constantly trying to figure out how I can serve my agents better and help them lead a more fulfilled real estate career and life.
yeah,
So when that doubt starts to creep in, it's like, no, 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 get out of here. I've got too many people that I've got to, you know, serve and
yeah,
you know m- make sure that they're getting everything that they can from us.
yeah. That's good. And I've seen it firsthand. I think you're a good boss.
I hope so. I like
Yeah.
I am.
I would like that slushie machine to get started up again, but anyway.
Yeah, that's a whole other story.
Well, I know. Um, did you ever have, mentors or, ever been part of community, or unexpected, support along the way as you started in your ventures?
Yeah, so like I mentioned before, my first mentor coming into real estate was Tony Vega, another retired NYPD sergeant. Really helped me along the way. Really helped me understand. He was, in police terms, he was my FTO. He's how I learned real estate on the street. Really sharpened my skills with him. So that when I was ready 3 years later to go out on my own, I was pretty confident in my abilities as a real estate broker, um, coupled with my experience as a sergeant in the NYPD. I knew that I had the real estate knowledge backed with the leadership training that I had gotten as a sergeant. That going into brokerage was the right idea. Um, what I would say though is still didn't know what I didn't know, right? So when we got into Remax, one of our franchise consultants, Deb Chamberlain, really took us under her wing. She was pivotal in our success, I would say, in just guiding us in the right direction. And one of the best decisions we made was hiring a real estate broker coach
Mm,
very early on. My partner and I are, you know, we're full energy. We want to just go and get things done, but we didn't know what exactly to do. And you know, connecting with Wayne Frederick, our real estate coach, really is what put us on the path to rapid success.
mm,
His guidance was pivotal. Like we came from mindset like, hey, we'll do something. Just tell us what it is we have to do. Provide that framework, And Wayne was able to provide that framework that you said, hey, listen, go do this, recruit to a magnet, build your magnet. What's going to attract agents? All right, now recruit to it. And then Mike and I just put our heads down and went after it.
Awesome. Awesome. And how did your personal life change when you started your businesses?
I think striking a balance between work life and
Mm.
personal life. Um, my wife is also one of our admins, so it very many times commingles. So personal life and work life is um, you know mixed together. But really, personal life is being intentional about carving out time for us and our two kids. I think is very important.
Mm.
Um, you know, I guess having the mindset like, hey, does this have to be done at 10 o'clock on a Saturday night, or can it wait till Monday at 9 a.m.? And the the thing that I try to be intentional about is as a real estate broker, your phone's in your hand 24/7. Um, One of the things I try to focus on is if my kids are in the room, that my phone is down and I'm paying attention to them.
Yeah.
Um, to me that's important because I don't want them to grow up and say, dad never paid attention to me. He was always on his phone, right? So it's being intentional with actions like that to show my kids that hey, you are more important
Yeah.
than whatever is coming through on the phone at this point, at this very moment. So
Yeah.
it can be a struggle, but
Mhm.
being intentional about having personal time, I think is very important.
Yeah, and they'll remember that, not only your kids, but your wife. They remember that you took them as a priority in your life, and, spending that quality time with them. I hear that all the time from my wife. Even we went away this weekend. We just went to Rhode Island, just spent some quality time, at the beach, at a, forget the name of the place, but the beach was so loud. I don't know if a storm was coming in, but, like, for the 2, 3 days straight, it was almost too much, but I wasn't trying to focus on that. We're focusing on each other, and she enjoyed it, so, you know, but it's beneficial for us to make our significant others, our children, even friends in our lives, as a priority in order, for them to sense, "Hey, I love you. I wanna spend time with you." Quality time is very important, especially, between married couples and the children, because at the end of the day, you're not gonna come home to your clients. You're coming home to your wife and kids, and, you're yes, you're building a legacy for them, but if they don't really see those behind the scenes stuff. They see you at home and how you treat them, how you speak to them, how you respect them. And, by putting that's a struggle for me too. You know, keeping the phone down, especially right now, it's high busy time for me. Um, for all of us, in real estate market, everything like that. Cause, sun's out, birds out, business is popping. And so we're, I'm always looking to make enough so that the winter isn't too cold. You know what I mean? That being said, as it pertains to the grind, sustaining the business, how did you keep things going when the hype wore off?
Good question. What I would say is myself and my partner, Mike, are always looking to be at the cutting edge of whatever's coming out in the real estate market. We say the only consistency in real estate is change, right? And being on the forefront of that change. Um, with the NAR lawsuits last year, everybody was um, really in a tizzy, and we leaned into it, and we started talking to our agents and training them and changing the mentality and the mindset of commissions and really how they were, netted out.
Yeah.
And when the change finally came, our agents were already in a mindset like, all right, this is how it's going to be. I'm doing it. And what we're finding is that they're making more money now.
Mm.
But I still produce, and dealing with other agents and from other brokerages that never had that. The old way of thinking is still there. And one of my listings, a real estate agent said, are you providing a co-broke? I said, well, we don't have a co-broke, but the sellers are willing to compensate a buyer agent who brings a reputable buyer along with an offer. And she couldn't understand that. And finally, I said to her, I said, listen, why would I tell you how much you can make as a buyer agent? You run your own business. You're an entrepreneur. Tell me what you're worth. Put it in the offer, and I'll present it to my sellers.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna cap how much or dictate how much you make on your end, because you're providing value to your buyers and your clients, and show my sellers what your value is with an offer and with your compensation in the offer. Um, and I think that mindset, it's still hard for agents that have been in the industry to get into. For so long, it was, hey, this is the co-broke. This is what it is. No matter how good or bad I am as an agent, this is what I'm getting. So it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Now I think it's really allowing the good agents, the talented agents, to get ahead on the buyer side of things, to show their value and say, hey, listen, I'm worth this because this is what I do.
Yeah. Awesome. Can you explain to those that are listening that don't know what that whole lawsuit was about? I have an idea, but can you sort of explain it uh to someone that doesn't know anything about real estate?
Yeah. So very briefly, basically, it was a lawsuit that came in Missouri, that said that sellers overpaid commissions by being forced to provide a buyer agency compensation, um, to buyers agents that brought buyers to the table when they sold their house. So what NAR said is, we're not going to advertise co-brokes through the MLS, and really the intention was to decouple commissions. The buy side pays the buy side, the seller side pays the seller side. Um, so for so many years, we advertised a buyer agency co-broke commission in the MLS. That disappeared. So for many people that worked primarily for, as a buyer agent for buyers, kind of relied on seeing that number at the bottom of every listing. It was almost like a security blanket.
Yeah.
Um, so once it was removed, people really didn't know how to work. And that's why being a part of the brokerage that is, you know, on the forefront of change, and willing to, you know, lean into the change, I think is important as an agent. Because like I said, we leaned into it right away. Uh, you know, what we told our agents is, we're not necessarily going to put a co-broke out there, but we're going to say, hey, listen, the seller is compensating. Put your buyer agency commission in with the offer, and we'll negotiate that with the seller. Um, and our agents on the buy side are doing that. There was a little bit of trepidation at first, but once the agents started seeing that what we had trained them and how we had the mindset we had instilled in them, was working, and they were actually making more money. They had the what do you say, the drive to go out there and continue to
Mhm.
do it, where other people, you know, face change and froze up.
Mhm. And that's interesting. I didn't know that. Uh, that's good that they're making more money versus less. Because I knew when that started, a couple people were freaked out out of their mind because it's totally new, especially if you've been at it 20, 30 years, and all of a sudden this big thing changed. But that's all business, right? You have to work through the change. Um,
Yeah, and we taught the agents to pre-frame with the buyers and say, hey, listen, this is me. This is the value I provide. This is this is what I work for. This is my commission amount. You know, Good news is I'm a great real estate agent, and chances are I'll be able to get the seller to agree to pay for most, if not all of this fee.
Mhm.
But if not, you and I are going to have a conversation, and we'll talk about, you know, you know, what that looks like when we come to it. But
Mhm.
here's my value, but this is what I'm worth. And they kept moving along.
Yeah, yeah, good. And then what habits or mindsets helped you push through the tough times, similar to this sort of snafu with that lawsuit, and then other things that you've gone through. So, what sort of push you through that?
Yeah. So as somebody in leadership positions, I've learned that it's important to lead from the front. Even when I was a sergeant, uh, you know, I wasn't leading from behind. I was in front, leading the men and women that were part of my my tour, um, from the front. So I never expected anybody to go out and do something that I wasn't willing to do myself.
Mhm.
So leading from the front, and getting ahead of things, especially, with this NAR lawsuit, we got ahead of it. We were training and we were practicing, we were masterminding 8 months before, the policy actually came into place. So by the time that it actually did happen, it was it was normal to our agents. So leading from the front, getting ahead of any possible hiccups is important. Um, I would definitely say prayer is important,
Mm.
you know, and kind of reminding myself that pressure is a privilege, and from that pressure, it leads to growth.
Yeah. Th I like that term, the pressure is a privilege, 'cause it's sort of like when things are slow, you miss, the the busyness of the seasons. It's sort of like when, the snow's fine, snow's great and everything like that, but then it's, like, super slow, and then it's like you get bored, especially if, you do high pace kind of work, like, in real estate. And me, I do real estate, but then also, commercial and corporate work and events. If you're photographing an event, filming an event or whatever, especially weddings, it's super high paced. And then you go from something like that into, super slow season, and it's like you start really missing, those, the fast pace ness of it all. I recently, got connected with, working, for a company that that all they do is, they, I guess they provide, website services and photography and video services for, restaurants. And so being in that environment, it reminds me a lot of, um weddings, because it's super fast paced. If you ever work in a kitchen, yeah, it's good stuff. But, it's enjoyable, especially if it's something that you really enjoy to do, uh, and if you're good at it, you tend to miss it, and so I enjoy when I'm working, especially, you know, the whole term of idle hands kinda stuff. It keeps you when you're busy, you tend to not make bad decisions, so that's a good thing. So, that being said, how has your definition of success changed since you started?
So I think initially, when I first started, it was about money and growth. I think now, 5 years into uh, the brokerage, I think it's really kind of lean more towards impact and legacy. I want to be able to build something that can outlive me. Um, and for me, success really is seeing others win. And knowing that I had a hand in helping them get to where they were. Like I could care less about me, but I love seeing my agents win.
Yeah.
And be successful, get that $1 million listing under contract, and hit uh, production milestones. So anytime that I can get to acknowledge and reward the success of our agents, that's what I love.
Mhm. Awesome. And have you ever you sort of alluded to this, previously, but, um, Have you ever had to shut down something or walk away from a venture, throughout your business ventures? Thank you so much for watching this podcast. If you have a moment, please like, subscribe, and follow wherever you're watching this or listening to this so that we can continue to bring these quality business owners telling their stories and bringing you the content that you so crave. Now, let's get back to this interview.
Yeah, so I mean, the biggest thing I had to walk away from was my career in the NYPD. Never in a million years did I think that I would only do 10 years there and I'd be done. I was gonna do 20 years, 25 years there because, really, that's the only thing I ever wanted to be growing up. From a young age, I was the kid that watched Ponch and John every Saturday. Every Friday night at 8 o'clock, I was watching Cops, the 2 half-hour episodes like clockwork. So that's for me, that's all I thought there was for me for my life. Until, getting injured and realizing, hey, this is no longer the reality. You've got to pivot to something else. So it was hard. When I got the call, because when you go out a line of duty injury, you go in front of a medical board, and it's four doctors who assess your injury and decide, hey, yeah, he can no longer perform the functions of a police officer, or no, he needs to go back to work. And there's no emotion when they call you. So I got a call. I was celebrating a closing with my early mentor, Tony Vega, and I got a call from the medical division saying, "Hey, yeah, we just got the report. You're done, kid. You're they they approved your line of duty injury. You're done." And at that point, like, my whole world kind of just collapsed.
Mhm.
Didn't know what to do, but the famous words of my gym instructor, "Hey, what are you gonna do? You got to do something, right?" So
Yeah.
I picked myself up, dusted off my pants, and kept going with the real estate. Um, you know, it was difficult, still is difficult. I mean, I still think about the job and everything almost daily, but it's something that I've had to move on and understand that, hey, that was my career, that was what I did. It's not what I do now. Real estate brokerage is what I do now.
Yeah.
And just keep moving forward and focused on the business and my agents, and making sure that my agents are have the ability to be as successful as they possibly can under Remax Rise.
Yeah.
I would say another recent failure is, we recently parted. I had a insurance franchise as well that I had bought a few years back, and just recently, parted ways with that franchise.
Mm.
Um, so that was another venture that was tough to walk away from, because it was a lot of time, energy, and money put into that insurance franchise that just never materialized. And do we still have the insurance company itself? Yes. Could we build something out from it? Uh, that's still to be determined.
Mhm.
This is like recent, as far as something that we've had to walk away from. Um, so we're still trying to figure it out,
Mhm. Awesome.
but we're leaving the door open. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah, maybe someone that's listening to this may reach out to you.
Yeah.
Um, speaking of, I did want to ask you this. This came to mind. Being a police officer in a previous life, uh, have you heard the term of universal concealed carry, and what are your thoughts on that?
Universal concealed carry. Yeah, I don't think that there should be restrictions on carry from state to state. I think it should be unrestricted, as long as you are deemed fit to carry a firearm and you go through the necessary background checks.
Mhm.
I don't think that a state border should define where I can carry.
Mhm. Yeah, that's one of the things. Like living in Connecticut, all of our boarding states, unless there's like ways around it. You need to get a license in like Vegas or Nevada and like other things like that, so you can have more states to carry. But it's like I always have to make sure because I am licensed and all that. Uh, I can't carry over the border, because I get caught and it's illegal, stuff like that. So it's like most of the time, you just leave it at home unless I know I'm going to be local. But yeah, it's one of the things I always want to see.
Yeah, the I'm very much a common sense kind of guy, and a lot of the rules and laws I see on the books about firearms just don't make sense to me. I mean, even when I was on the job and I'd come up to Connecticut and want to go to a shooting range. And this is a real story. I went to a shooting range with it was myself, my father, my brother, and my wife. And prior to that, I had gone to a store to try to buy ammo. Now I'm active NYPD sergeant, you know, uh, legal and able to carry in all 50 states unrestricted without any issue. And I have a Walmart employee telling me that I can't buy ammunition because I don't have a Connecticut firearms like a pistol license. I was like,
Uh-huh.
kidding me? And I thought the story was done there until I went to the shooting range and we're signing in and you know, the the range instructors asked who my wife will be shooting with because she didn't have her pistol license, and I said she'll be shooting with me. I'm the most experienced in firearms of the three of us. I'm an active, sergeant in the NYPD. She'll be shooting with me. And he goes, "Ooh, sorry, but she's got to shoot with he's one of the other guy, my brother or my father, because I don't have a Connecticut pistol license." And it's like,
Really?
man, like, what sense does that make? You know?
Yeah. I didn't know it was that, like, full of bureaucracy. Good times. So back to business. What did, as it pertains to, the recent failures and not failures, but pivots in business, what do those experiences teach you about failure or even, about yourself in that?
Yeah. So I think most importantly, failure doesn't mean you're finished. Um,
Mhm.
it means you're learning, right? Taking in point this the insurance franchise that I ended up going away from. It sounded great when they were pitching it to us. And learned that really didn't have the ability to help us succeed up in the Northeast. There was a franchise that was more, southern states. So it was a learning lesson. Like, hey, you know, uh, what you thought didn't actually come true. Let's regroup, rebuild, and figure out where we go from there. So, even though you could chalk it up as a failure, it doesn't mean that we're necessarily finished with that.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah,
uh,
it gives room for new ventures.
right. And just like when I was a cop on the street, I learned to trust my gut, and I think more importantly, protecting protecting my peace. You know, if you're familiar with DISC assessments, personality assessments, I'm a very high S, high C. So I tend to take things personal, you know, and I would let things rob my peace. So providing protection around my peace, was something that I had to learn as well.
Yeah.
Um, and the other thing too is you know I'm a fixer. I want to if there's a problem, I want to come in and solve that problem. And sometimes it's about just walking away and letting the situation fix itself. That I'm not the ultimate fixer in things. Um, Sometimes the situation needs to work itself out.
Yeah. That's huge. I think that's I've heard, being part of men's ministry. There's my church is a Forge Men's Ministry. But anyway, um, one of the things that we've learned, is a lot of men, they like to fix things, like to fix a situation, try to I'm sure it could be said in a better way, but fix their wives. But their scenario is that we just need to listen. We just need to assess and to step back, and that's one of the hardest things to do sometimes is to step back, to really think, and maybe like you said, the situation would usually, fix itself, unless you need, hands-on intervention. So it's definitely a discernment moment in that, but it's really good. So that being said, how do you deal with fear, doubt, or burnout in business and then also in personal life? Because the two are sort of different. Speaking as an entrepreneur, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I try to zoom out and remind myself why I started what we started. Obviously, lean on my faith, um, reset with my family, and kind of unplug to gain a. So sometimes we just get so focused and we trap ourselves inside a box, right? And we can't see or think clearly. And it's really trying to get outside of that box and gain the outside perspective um, on the situation to see, hey, am I missing something here? You know, am I the problem? Because sometimes you can be the problem.
Yeah.
Um, so really just zooming out, getting the outside perspective, getting outside the box and really observing the situation and seeing all the different angles and perspectives because, there's different personalities have different perspectives on, you know, what they may be seeing in the situation. I think getting out on the golf course helps a bit too.
Mm.
Um, and honestly, sometimes for me, just zoning out. No, like on
Silence.
a Saturday afternoon, I'll shut my phone off and that's it. I'm done. I think that helps recharge the batteries. But as far as fear, um, uh, early on, even as a cop, I used fear as a motivator to get the job done.
Mm.
So fear didn't stop me, but made me um, more cognizant of the situation around. Um, fear didn't stop me in my tracks, but helped me push forward, but push forward in a cautious manner.
Mhm.
But really, you know, with when it comes to doubt, it's hey, listen, what are you gonna do? You got to do something, right? The old famous words of Detective Barry.
Right.
What are you gonna do?
T-shirt. Make a T-shirt out of that.
Should make a t-shirt out of that.
Cool. And then looking back, what advice would you give your past self, sort of a little Bronco? What would you say to him?
Be patient. Good things take time. I tend to be impatient sometimes, and um, I want things to happen right away. Um, but I've learned that good things take time to build. And enjoy the process as you're going through it.
Mhm.
Don't become so focused on the end that you miss the present.
Yeah.
Um, I would say trust your instincts and more importantly, build with people who align with your values and your vision, right?
Mhm.
Get buy-in from the people in your circle, um, so that you can move forward with a clear vision and with people that can support that vision. I'm not, we aren't able to do all things. Having that team of people, I think, is crucial to building something successful because, somebody bring, every person in the team brings something valuable to the table. And
Mhm.
how do we get that out of them to get the very best out of them to help the team succeed is as a leader, I think is really important.
Yeah. Yeah, building teams is it's something really different where I'm building my teams as you know, with my photography and video services. I did hire on a virtual assistant for a time, but I think it was too soon. But I don't know if you know this, but the wedding industry had a bit of a flop in the beginning couple months. And it was she was primarily working in my wedding business, and it was like she wasn't doing much because there was not much, going on. It's because less and less people are getting married, and if they are getting married, they're getting eloped, for whatever reason. They just decided even the venues, they're saying the majority of our bookings are for next year. And so this year is just really slow for a lot of different wedding professionals, and so it gave me a lot of time to reflect, uh, a lot of time to really, look into, my business and like, I started to get back into wedding photography. So I added on a couple of people to do wedding photography because we were just doing wedding films for weddings specifically. And then, sort of really thinking outside of the box as it pertains to all of that within that venture, and then looking into other things, and and then this podcast, sort of started thinking about that, and creating my other things. But it's nothing like when you really go through stuff, and the different fears, different doubts, and burnout, like we talked about before, it really gets you to focus on what's really important in life and what you really want to do. It's weird when I turned 40, I'm 41 right now. So I'm just over that hump. And you start really thinking about, I didn't buy a Corvette. I didn't buy a motorcycle, anything. I wouldn't say crazy, but anything that, spontaneous. Because I wouldn't mind a Corvette. I'm sure you wouldn't mind a brand new
No.
cherry Corvette. But that's
Be
that's
fun.
not gonna what was that?
That might be fun.
Yeah, yeah. But it's like, would that really change the whole change paradigm of changing 39 to 40, and so I started thinking about different business changes, different business ventures, and how's my family life, uh, how's the next 40 years going to look like, and I started looking into ministry more. I started looking into how I really want to grow this business, and so that's sort of what really impacted me with that change. And now that I'm 41, I think I have a better insight as far as what my next 40 years is going to be like, as you start to recognize what's really important, you know. Um, and so for you, what's sort of one misconception people have about starting or running a business?
Yeah, I've got three for you. Um, Freedom doesn't mean less work. It actually means more responsibility.
Mm,
Um, Entrepreneurship isn't a vacation. I think it's more of a mission. Um, and people think success is overnight, but it's not. It's a daily decision
yeah.
to be the best that you can be.
Mhm. Good. How has this journey changed who you are as a person?
Good question. I think that I'm more disciplined. I think I'm um, more empathetic, and I think I'm more resilient. Empathy was a real big thing for me to work on. As a cop, um, you 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 build like a hard shell around you,
Mm,
and a lot of times what that ends up doing is it you come across to others as less than empathetic,
mm,
callous. Um, so really understanding where somebody else is coming from and what might be affecting, um, you know, what their current mood is. Just trying to be there and provide um, some empathy to them. I think, or something that as a leader on the real estate state side of things is something I've had to build, and being resilient. It's real estate. Being a real estate broker, it's kind of like a roller coaster ride. So building up that resilience to take that ride one more time is something that uh, has changed as for me, because normally I just get off the ride and say I'm going to go sit on a bench. You go on again. I'm good. But that resiliency is like, hey, I didn't quite enjoy that ride, but it's time to get back on and do it again.
yeah.
It's definitely something that I've had to grow into. Um, and I think more importantly, had to, learn how to deal, or not deal, but learn how to lead with my heart, and not just a hustle mentality. Uh,
Mhm,
and really look at what's going on with that person in that moment,
mhm,
rather than just saying, "Hey, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and let's go."
mm, that's good. So talking about that roller coaster, what's the next roller coaster for you?
Yes. So, we're opening up our third office in Watertown. like I mentioned before, my personality assessment, I'm a high S, high C. My business partner, Mike Albert, is a high D, high I. So if you understand disc assessments, that's polar opposites. So, uh, you know, Mike's Mike's sentiment is, "Let's go, we're gonna do it," and my sentiment is, "Wait, let's think about it." So,
He's your ball and chain.
we
That's good.
yeah, I'm his ball and chain.
Oh,
I'm the one that's always saying, "Hey, whoa, 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 let's slow down. Let's think about this first." So we've got that going. It's we've got a lot of momentum going up in that Watertown market. We're excited to open up. It's a great community, a lot of great agents up there, and it gives us the opportunity to build and expand into the Litchfield County market, which is um, where we've kind of seen from the very beginning is an opportunity for us with the real estate brokerage. So excited about the third office there in Watertown opening. Our grand opening is in about a month, June 17th. Um, really coming together. Great location.
you wanna say the full address?
What's up?
You wanna say the full address?
Yeah, so it's located at 1297 Main Street in Watertown. So
Right.
if
Yeah.
you're familiar with Cheeseburgers, we're right next to Cheeseburgers.
Oh, baby. I just had
A
a
good,
massive, massive cheeseburger at, the venue I went to this past weekend. I didn't realize how big an 8-ounce, patty was, and then I asked for him to give me 2, and I'm like I took a picture of that thing. Maybe I'll put it up here, but that thing was like this, like, not even fitting in my mouth. It was like a my wife and I, we shared it and barely breathed after that. But yeah.
yeah, having a cheeseburgers right across the street can be it could be dangerous because
Mm.
they make a good Philly cheesesteak. We'll just say that. So and it's a Carvel. So
Yeah. Well, that'll be a good spot for your, lunch and learns. Just,
yeah, there you go.
swing over, do those, platters.
Yeah.
So
But
any was that
yeah, no, that was just that. We're continuing with our closing in on success. I don't even know if I talked about that.
No, 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 please
Closing in on
elaborate on that.
yeah, closing in on success says something that Mike and I had thought of early on as a way to connect with other agents and other brokerages, just as an education platform to just push out value, right? With no expectation in return. And we saw in the real estate industry in this area, it's like it's siloed, right? You don't talk with people outside your brokerage, and this was a way really to break down those silos, get together, network, and engage in some really good training. So, we hold quarterly events, central to our area in the Waterbury market. We'll hold it at the local country club or one of the local hotels that has conference centers, and we'll fly in speakers from all around the country. We've got an attorney from Kansas City coming in next week, May 21st. She's coming down to the Courtyard Marriott and just providing an awesome opportunity to learn new things and network with agents that you wouldn't normally network with, right? Because we're always so busy just networking with the agents within inside our brokerage. We never really have an opportunity to get out and connect with agents outside when this is a cooperative industry, right?
Mm,
Um, Building those relationships outside the brokerage, I think, is important because they may be on the next deal with you. And hopefully you were able to connect at one of our closing in on success events so that when you see the other agent on the other end, you're like, oh, that's Sally. So yeah, we sat next to each other at a closing in on a success event. It was great. We had a great time, and I think that builds that synergy amongst agents in the area. That was really the main purpose of launching closing in on success is just breaking down the barriers, breaking down the silos, coming together, networking, and just learning from the very best from around the country.
mhm. That's awesome, that's awesome. So so sort of final words here. Any words for someone listening who's, just about to start their own business journey? What would you say to them?
So what I would say, and coming from where we started, start scared, but start anyway.
Mm,
Do it. Don't sit on the sidelines and contemplate what could be. Just get out there, have a framework, and get out there and get after it. It's not going to be perfect, but I would say get out there and do it anyway. Um, your story matters. I think um, people can connect to stories. So tell your story. Um, Maybe that's a way that somebody can build their story by learning about yours.
Yeah.
Uh, just be that inspiration for somebody that can launch their success.
It's good. It's good. So, thank you so much, Adam, for being a part of this podcast. Where can people connect with you and support your businesses?
Yeah. So you can find me on all the social media channels at Adam Bronko on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok.
Eh,
And
you're doing those dances?
not doing dances, but I try to provide. One of the things that got me through as a cop was comedy, right? So
Mm.
I think if you look at my TikTok page, you'll find that I try to bring some comedy to real estate, and I hope that reflects when a real estate agent or somebody in the real estate industry is watching it, because I think that is also a way to get through stressful situations. Is sometimes you just have to laugh at it, right? So,
Mm.
I find certain things that I can relate towards the real estate market, and I put it in a funny little post just so that it, I guess the only mission there is just to make somebody laugh, and pivot from maybe a difficult day they might be having, and put them onto a happier path for the day.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thanks again for being a part of the podcast. It was a pleasure having you on.
No, thanks, John. I appreciate you having me.
All right. Take care. Well, there you have it, guys. We got some good insight from a seasoned business professional owning multiple businesses here in Connecticut. There's one of the things that really caught my attention with this interview with Adam Bronco was his just sheer motivation to get things done right. There's so many things that you could cut the corners on and, get it done probably half the cost. But what's the longevity on it? And will your clients be happy with your performance, with your work ethics and all the above? I mean, sure, you'll make a little extra, but will you be able to sleep well at night? Can you really say that you did a job well done or that the product was of its utmost quality? I mean, there are times you could say yes, but at the end of the day, I for sure would like to be able to sleep at night without worrying or fearing that my business decisions weren't all on the up and up. Take it from Adam Bronco, an ex police sergeant turned real estate broker. He knows what's up. But do you? Do you know what your limits are? Do you know your capacity for greatness? I think it really stems from your ability to do things right, to be able to have a good morale about your business and your business dealings. Could you really be able to speak to your wife or your loved one at the end of the day and say, I did good today? I think that's what everyone wants out of their business, out of their life, to be able to say at the end of the day, I did a job well done. Like Adam, he's doing a job well done. Props to him, through different ventures and different, things that went on in his business and his life. Really, really good stuff. And I hope you get to enjoy this talk and the many other talks that we'll have throughout the hopefully years through this podcast. So if you like listening to my business story podcast, feel free to subscribe, and follow if you want to hear more of what the business owners of today would like to say to you. All right, until next time, take care.